dwell in a house among his people. But now he has a home that's better than the first. It doesn't look like a building with a steeple. Now he's living in the people of the church. Brick after brick, God is building his temple. Brick after brick, he's making it strong. With Christ the sure foundation and his people as the stones, he is building a place he can live. Brick after brick.
I want to mention a little something on a personal note before I begin. Every once in a while, not out of obligation or to fill a requirement or out of habit, but because we sincerely want to express ourselves to other people, it's a good idea to let people know how we feel. Are you blessed by somebody? Are you grateful to somebody? Now and then it's a good idea to mention that. I want to mention some folks in particular. My wife Andrea, for the past 43 years, has discovered something, that putting up with me is a full-time job. Everything else is, she squeezes the rest of it in when she can, but for the most part, she's putting up with me. Over the years, I've had a variety of mentors that played a large part in why I'm able to stand here today. Our own senior pastor, Rev, of course, is an important one on that list, and I've learned a lot from him. And finally, I wanted to mention the rest of you. The rest of you who might hear this later, who aren't here today. All my interactions with you and my time with you has all been part of what makes me who I am. So you could kind of say it's your fault, But anyway, I just wanted to let you all know how much I care about all of you, my church family. And I pray for God's best for all of you going forward, and I'm grateful for all you've done for me. All right, I guess we should actually get started. Today I want to talk about our declaration of dependence, our dependence on God. What does that really mean to us? We're going to take our select for today from Proverbs 3. I'm going to start reading a little bit ahead of our key verse today. Let's kind of set the overall context here. It says, "My child, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments, for they will provide a long and full life and well-being for you. Do not let mercy and truth leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and people. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own estimation. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. This will bring healing to your body and refreshment to your inner self." That's from the Net Translation, which I'm using either all the way through or maybe with one exception, I forget. So the key verse is actually here. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will make your path straight. What's the point of all this? Everything in Scripture has a principle behind it. Here's what's being said here. A full acknowledgement. This is kind of hard for us to do sometimes. It's easy for us to give lip service to our dependence on God, but there's a part of us that wants to be independent. It's hard for us to give our entire heart to God, but it's what we need to do, and we need to do that daily. It notes that there are spiritual, psychological, even physical benefits. When you're at peace with God, when you're connected to God, when you're depending on God fully, you're going to feel better, literally feel better. You can still be having a tough time, but you'll manage better, a lot better if you're connected to God than if you're not. Think about your own life and how it's gone when you've been more closer to God and farther away from God. Which one's harder? A warning about self-reliance. It says don't rely on yourself. Why? Because that's not a good idea. Think about who we are and how we are. Think about human nature. We don't always do too well relying on ourselves. We're prone to error, right? God is not prone to error. And there's an assurance that if you rely on God, if you declare your dependence on him, true guidance will always come from him. He'll never steer you wrong. Pretty simple message, but it's one that we seem to need to be reminded of. But that's okay. Someone once said that preaching is reminding. Right? Are you going to hear any radically new concepts from week to week? Well, of course not. The Word of God is the Word of God. But we still need to be reminded of it. Here's a nice example of God as a protector from Psalm 121. It says, look, Israel's protector does not sleep or slumber. The Lord is your protector. The Lord is the shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day or the moon by night. The Lord will protect you from all harm. He will protect your life. The Lord will protect you in all you do now and forevermore. Now, some folks will ask a fair question. They'll say, well, if God's protecting me all the time from everything, why do bad things happen to me sometimes? Why do bad things happen to my friends? Why do things not turn out the way I expected? Why do I not get the answer to prayer that I expected? If God's always on the job and he's always there for me and to protect me, maybe even from myself, from my own stupidity, why do I have these problems? Now, there's a variety of ways to look at that. God is always your protector. He's always your guide. He's always your parent, you could say. But he knows a lot of things that we don't. So it's easy for us to say we think our lives should go exactly our way all the time, but we don't see that big picture. We'll get into that a little bit here and you get the idea. I'll take some examples from the Bible. We're all familiar with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and the fiery furnace, right? It's a well-known Bible story. They were threatened, you either worship the idol or in the fire you go. What was their response? We see it in Daniel 3:17-18. He said, if our God whom we are serving exists, he is able to rescue us from the furnace of blazing fire. And he will rescue us, O king, from your power as well. But if he does not, let it be known to you, O king, that we don't serve your gods, and we will not pay homage to the golden statue that you have erected. Here's the interesting part of this. It says, but if he does not. They believed what the scripture said. They know God's their protector. They also knew that in this particular situation, they might not get what they want. There might be a reason why they have to suffer. If we think forward into the gospel, Christ himself suffered greatly, right? But what they understood was regardless of what God does here, we're still committed to him. We rely on him. We believe in him. We depend on him, and we're going to let him handle it. Either way, we're not afraid of you because it's God that we fear. Joseph is another example. When his brothers thought they were going to get rid of this loudmouth once and for all, we've heard all we want to hear from him, we're going to drop him in here and that'll be that. They had no idea what could have happened later. He ended up being the one that could actually save them from disaster. Look at Genesis 45. It says, now, do not be upset and do not be angry with yourselves because you sold me here. He's speaking to his brothers. For God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. For these past 2 years there's been famine in the land, and for 5 more years there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God sent me ahead of you to preserve you on the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. What's the point of all this? We can rest assured that God knows what he's doing. It makes me think of the idea of an architect. Gets a building all planned out. Knows all the intimate details of how all the systems are going to be in place. How things are going to be built. What's going to go where. How much material is needed. How strong certain materials are going to be. What the function is of other materials that are part of this. And how it's all going to work together. An overhead big picture view of the whole project before it even begins, during construction, after it's completed. The entire thing is planned out and how that's going to work out. Who has that view besides God? Well, no one. As the architect of everything that ever has existed and ever will exist, he has the blueprint, but he's the only one that sees it. He's the only one that understands it. He's the one that actually generates it. So here's where we need this kind of relationship that we see here again in the Psalms, Psalm 89, I will sing continually about the Lord's faithful deeds. To future generations, I will proclaim your faithfulness. For I say, loyal love is permanently established. In the skies you set up your faithfulness. And here's God's response. The Lord said, I have made a covenant with my chosen one. I have made a promise on oath to David my servant. I will give you an eternal dynasty and establish your throne throughout future generations. There are two promises here, one from man to God and one from God to man. I'm going to proclaim your faithfulness and depend on you and rely on you now and always. And God says, you can rely on me now and always. I'm depending on you. That's our statement of faith. That's our statement of reliance. That's our declaration of dependence. And God says, don't worry, you can depend on me. I'm there for you. You're not always going to understand everything I do. But believe me, I'm always there for you. Now and into the future. In Isaiah 46, you see this. It says, even when you are old, I will take care of you. Even when you have gray hair, I will carry you. I made you and I will support you. I will carry you and rescue you. I think it's one of the passages. I don't know. It just makes me feel good when I read that. It's just a comforting thing. It's like out of everyone that we deal with in our lives that prove unreliable, there's one who's always reliable. I love this whole idea of, like, from start to finish, I put you there. I'll take care of you. I'm there when you need me. I carry you along. You don't see me, you might not always even feel it. It's like carrying an infant, right? It's like, don't worry, I won't drop you. Back to the Psalm. Psalm 73. Whom do I have in heaven but you? On earth there is no one I desire but you. My flesh and my heart may grow weak, but God always protects my heart and gives me stability. Yes, look, those far from you die. You destroy everyone who is unfaithful to you. But as for me, God's presence is all I need. I have made the sovereign Lord my shelter as I declare all the things you have done. But as for me, God's presence is all I need. I've made the sovereign Lord my shelter. There's that idea of protection again, right? We know that on the most important level, we certainly are protected. We're protected from destruction. We're protected from hell because we're part of God's family. What could be more important than that? It might not be easy along the way, but you're certainly guarded from that by God himself. And who else could do that? Well, there's something interesting in Matthew 18:3. When the disciples were starting to think a little bit that they're all that, we want to argue over who was more important and who could be more important in the next life. And Jesus' response was, I tell you the truth, unless you turn around and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Think about a little child. Look at this one in the picture. You can see they're kind of walking along the water there. What happens if mom lets go of the baby's hand and looks away for a while? Possibly disaster. This baby depends on mom for everything. That's the way God wants us to look at him. We need him for everything. He's the reason we can get up in the morning. And he should be the reason that we do get up in the morning, because we want to serve him. But without him, you wouldn't do it at all. And yet, we have a problem maintaining that kind of humility, that kind of subjugation, that kind of dependence. Matthew 26, we see the familiar story about Peter pledging his allegiance to Jesus. Peter said to him, if they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away. Jesus said to him, I tell you the truth, on this night before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, even if I must die with you, I will never deny you. And all the disciples said the same thing. Now, I'm sure they were being sincere, but where was it coming from? I hear an awful lot of I in here. Don't worry, I can hang in there, I can do this. I don't hear anybody saying, keep us close to you. Don't let us, do anything stupid here. We know we can hang in there if you're with us. No, they said, I got it covered. So here's what they're doing. When they're saying, I will never deny you, sitting out there on a limb by themselves, because you're thinking, well, I apparently don't need God for this. Well, let me tell you, the less dependent you are on God, the farther out on that limb you're sitting. The less dependent on God you are, the higher off the ground that limb is, and good luck when you go off the end. Don't be a stumbling block to yourself. This is something, kind of a little bit of an inner battle we constantly have to fight with ourselves. Right? We're our own worst enemy in a way. Acts 17, 26-28 says this, "From one man he made every nation of the human race to inhabit the entire earth, determining their set times and the fixed limits of the places where they would live." There's that blueprint. So they would search for God and perhaps grope around for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move about and exist, as even some of your own poets have said, for we too are his offspring. For in him we live and move about and exist. Don't kid yourself, every breath you take comes from God. Whether people believe in him or not, everything you're able to do is because he either allows you to do it, enables you to do it, puts a situation in place where you can do something. None of us do anything on our own. Even those of us who don't acknowledge God are going to depend on him at some level. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. People aren't functioning completely independently of God just because they don't want to acknowledge him. We all depend on God on some level, whether we even know it or not. So that being the case, with all we've heard up to now, it seems like it'd be a good idea to try to cultivate this dependence, as it says in Psalm 25. "Make me understand your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths. Guide me into your truth and teach me. For you are the God who delivers me. On you I rely all day long." I like the sound of that. On you I rely all day long. Not just when you happen to think of it. I know I've had days when, it's an example I keep thinking of, where I'd be at work, and it's a particularly busy morning, and I was, struggling along, and things kind of finally calmed down a little bit, and I'm like, man, I feel like I've been slapped around the last couple of hours. And it would come to me and say, I didn't think to ask God for assistance with this the whole time. I bet I'd be feeling a lot better now if I had. It reminds me of those businesses sometimes will advertise, and they'll say they want to provide a variety of services on a variety of levels. They'll say, no job is too big or too small. Well, certainly no job is too big or too small for God either. It's kind of funny, the too small thing. I remember thinking years ago, we used to get together sometimes and play ball and whatever. And this one kid would get up, and every time he'd get up at bat, he'd go like this. Get ready to go. And just before the first pitch, he'd cross himself. He was Catholic. And I remember thinking, what do you think, God's going to help you hit a homer? Well, he might. He might decide that, hey, I think I'll do this guy a little favor and I'll, help him out a little bit. Who knows? But the point is that he was thinking about God. In a small thing of no consequence, no one was getting paid to play ball. It was us out in the park, If he struck out, didn't mean anything. If he got a hit, didn't mean anything. Well, it'd be fun, but it wasn't a big deal. But the whole idea of no job too small, he had that concept. Little things in your day. So ask for help. Ask God to make you more mindful of your dependence on him. And you need to keep that going and keep developing it. Think small. Think about those little things. And then think big. Because everything, all the way from the smallest to the greatest in your life, God needs to be involved. Desire obedience. This is kind of an interesting thing. When I was thinking about this, you want to be obedient to God. And sometimes, isn't it kind of funny when the more obedient you try to be, the less obedient you are? Sometimes we're not always so good at that. If you desire obedience, you start to come to a little more of a realization that, I'm going to need help with being obedient because I'm not the greatest at it. If you desire obedience, hopefully you'll desire dependence to go along with it. See, the bottom line is you can never be too dependent on God. All right, we see this in our society all the time. We'll say people, they're just too clingy. They're too dependent. They can't. My goodness, they can't tie their shoes for themselves. They got to, they can't stand on their own 2 feet. You can't be too dependent on God. So look at it that way. I'm completely helpless, so I depend on God for everything. You can't go wrong. Every year, and coming up shortly, probably in about a month, my wife and I look forward to the arrival of some ospreys. We live right on the Taunton River, and we look across the river, and there's an osprey stand. And we'll see the first one show up. We're like, anytime now, and here comes the second one. Next thing you know, there's baby ospreys. So they'll have a nest up there. They'll be in the nest with their babies. Now, of course, the babies are dependent. They have no idea what's going on, but they know mom and dad are there, and if they sit there long enough, they'll bring them a fish. So they've got a place to live. They've got food. They've got somebody to keep an eye on them. They're very dependent. But at one point, things change. We'll watch them flying over the house, flying around the river. They'll circle over the yard, and the babies are getting bigger and bigger, and it's flying lessons, right? They get the idea of getting ready to go out on your own. So eventually, they'll be out on their own. They'll have their own families. They'll have their own lives. But they won't have mom and dad anymore. They can't just, hey, let me take a fly over to mom's nest and I need some advice. That time is over. They have to be independent. They're on their own. Unlike the ospreys, we don't have to worry about that. As it says in Joshua 1:9, it says, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. We always have Dad to go back to. We can always seek his advice and seek his help and know that his presence is always there. But this is the kind of thing you want to be habitual about it. Here's one indicator you might want to look for. When something comes up in your life, a difficulty, a problem, or maybe a crisis, what's your first reaction right away? Do you say, it's time to freak out? Or do you go, yikes, Lord, this is kind of scary, but I know you and I, this is going to be an adventure for us. We're going to do this together. What's your first reaction? Which one of those happens? If you make dependence on God a habit, the second reaction will be a lot more common in your life. Dependence on God enables us to do some things. To step out in faith with courage, to do the right thing. The more we are aware we are that our power comes from God, the more ready we are to use it and to be more confident. Because the confidence is in Him, not in ourselves. To serve and disciple others. We're here to serve each other as the body of Christ. We're also here to make disciples. We want to develop as Christians. We want to help others develop as Christians. So what we want to do is draw closer together within the body of Christ. We're supposed to be a family. Jesus is very clear about dependence. He says remain, or the other way this can be translated is reside, which I actually like better. When it talks about sort of dependence as a lifestyle. He says, remain in me and I'll remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it remains in the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I'm the vine, you're the branches. The one who remains in me and I in him bears much fruit, because apart from me, you can accomplish nothing. Not only does he say, you'll be doing it the hard way the more you try to do it yourself, he says, you're not going to succeed at all without me. If you really want to accomplish something in the Christian life, you need Christ to do it. That's why we call it Christian. How are our lives harder when we try to rely more on ourselves than on God? For one thing, we're more vulnerable to the snares of sin. When you mess up big time, or even little time, one of the things you think of afterward is you're like, why wasn't I thinking? People will say, I just heard a sermon by Michael Youssef this morning. He was talking about 2 Timothy, and one of the things that Paul was telling Timothy was to remember Jesus. How could Timothy not remember Jesus, was the question, right? Because naturally, in the moment, we kind of forget him, and that's when we make mistakes. We don't forget who he is. We don't completely forget who we are. But we can be distracted, right? Jesus is kind of not on the forefront of our mind in the moment. It's amazing how easily that can happen. Our spiritual growth gets stunted. If you're not going to rely and depend continually on God, you really think you're going to grow spiritually? I can tell you, you won't. Instead of getting closer to the body of Christ, the more independent thinking we are, the more we tend to want to be on our own. We don't want to have to deal with that because we know what we're doing, we know how to do it, we can't be bothered. So now we draw apart instead of getting closer. Obviously, the title of this sermon was a play on the words Declaration of Independence, when this country was founded. This was a big deal. It was a very public declaration. It was a statement of who they are and what they're about. And they said, we've decided we're another country now. We're making it official with all the consequences that come with that, all the difficulties that might come with that. And they declared this to each other. They made sure they were all clear on what they were doing, and they made this decision and this declaration to each other, to the rest of the population that they represented, and most significantly to the British king, when they said, we're done with you. We make a declaration of dependence a few different ways as well. We make it to ourselves. We make a decision. We say, I'm done trying to do things my way. I'm going to depend on God. We make that declaration to Him. We say, I'm depending on you. We make that declaration in a variety of ways to others around us, within and without the body of Christ. Sometimes someone will ask you, well, what's the deal? You got plenty of problems and everything. You still seem to have it all together. It's almost like you're happy in spite of everything that's going on. Well, I depend on God. My joy rests in Christ. So there's a declaration of dependence right there. So a few things about what our declaration of dependence ought to look like. It says that we're convinced. This can't be a halfway thing. Remember what it said in Proverbs, your entire heart has to be committed to this dependence on God. So we've made, like the signers of the Declaration of Independence, we've made a commitment to dependence on God. We're ready to go public with that commitment. We don't care who knows it. In fact, we would prefer that people know it. We'd like them to be dependent on God too. We'd love for them to meet Him. We're willing to take consequences and make sacrifices. Declaring yourself as part of God's family, depending on Him, is not always the simplest thing. Sometimes it generates some bumps in the road for you. But that's all right, because we're unafraid, we're unashamed, because we're all in. Individually, as families, as local churches, and as the body of Christ. That's what I'm talking about. There was a document. They called it the Declaration of Independence. This made it official. So after they signed this document, they put it down and go, okay, keep that in the drawer and take care of it, and we're all set. We're done. Of course not. It had to be followed up with action. They had to keep this going, keep this movement going, keep the support going, make sure everybody was focused on this goal. In fact, they literally had to fight for their lives to maintain it, but they knew it was worth it. Our declaration of dependence on God, we need to take that seriously. We need to understand that it's worth it. There are a few external ways that we do this. For example, baptism. The point of baptism is to say, I'm with Jesus now. I'm not doing this on my own anymore. I depend on Him. He's the one who saved me, so He's the one that I'm going to associate myself with. You ask me who I am, what my faith is about. I'm a Christian. When you are taking communion, that's a declaration, a proclamation of the fact that we need God. We remember who it was we had to depend on for salvation. We remember who it is that we depend on for everything, and we declare that publicly. We say, this is how we do that. When we pray, when you think about it, when you pray, isn't that a declaration of dependence? If I don't need God, why would I pray to Him? Just to say hi? Unlikely. You pray because you realize that there's someone greater than you who you have to depend on. If you want to be sustained, if there's something you need, if there's something you want to be empowered to do, you express praise and joy and gratitude because you know that all these things come from God. By praying to Him, you're saying, I depend on you. I need to rely on you. I can't do this, so I'm going to you. And you can see some little external ways that people will declare how they depend on God, who they are in Christ. It can come out in conversation, as I mentioned earlier. When people want to know who you are and what you're about, what do you say? Is there a declaration of your dependence and your reliance on God, your relationship with Him? When it's time to make decisions, is that what guides you? When you want to make a decision about how you might publish something that other people will see, you might even do what we all do now and then. You might walk around with a T-shirt that indicates your dependence on God. Just literally something you wear. All those are little external signs of what's something it's got to be really important to us and really basic to our existence. And you'd be surprised how easily it can slip away a little bit. Let's go back to a very familiar story of an exorcism. Now, when Jesus saw that a crowd was quickly gathering, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "Mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." It shrieked, threw him into terrible convulsions, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus gently took his hand, raised him to his feet, and he stood up. Now, this was an attempt at an exorcism on the part of Christ's disciples, and it wasn't successful. They had a bad time. So later on, after Jesus was done cleaning up their mess, then after he went into the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we cast it out?" He told them, "This kind can come out only by prayer." It's not that they forgot their daily prayers. It's that maybe they got a little too big for their britches and forgot where this power to do this kind of thing came from in the first place. If you try to leave God out of something, it's a recipe for disaster. It's important for us to constantly trust in the Lord. Psalm 16 says, "I constantly trust in the Lord. Because he is at my right hand, I will not be shaken." Literal translation is, I set the Lord before me continually. Right in front of my face, all day, every day. That's how this needs to be. If you're going to declare your dependence on God, you need to depend on him. Don't just trot him out now and then, when you happen to think about it. We always say, "I want to be more like Jesus." Well, don't we all? Don't we all? Is there anybody who doesn't want to be more like Jesus? I better not hear anything. Of course, we all want to be more Christ-like. The first step toward being more Christ-like is to become more dependent on Christ. That's the simple lesson. That's what I want you to understand today. The more we declare our dependence on God, and the more important that is to us, the more success we're going to have in the Christian life. Amen?
Brick after brick, God is building his temple. Brick after brick, he is making it strong. With Christ the sure foundation and his people as the stones, he is building a place he